All right, today we're diving into something pretty wild, a really unconventional theory that suggests the financial markets might actually be ticking to the rhythm of a cosmic clock. We're going to break down the core ideas behind what's known as financial astrology. So let's just get right to the big question, the one you're probably already thinking. Can the movements of the planets, Jupiter, Saturn, even our own moon, really have anything to do with the ups and downs of the stock market? It's a huge claim for sure, and we're here to unpack the theory behind it. Okay, so first things first, let's get into the foundational concept. Proponents of this idea say it's not about magic or some kind of fortune telling. Instead, they want you to imagine the entire solar system as a giant, incredibly intricate clock. So what this really boils down to is the study of correlations. The theory goes that just like a clock has hands that move at different speeds to show us the time, all the planets in our solar system act like hands on this massive cosmic clock. And where those hands are positioned, in theory, corresponds to different phases or even moods in the financial markets. But, if all the planets are hands on this clock, how on earth do you read them all at the same time? Well, that brings us to the core mechanism of the theory, something they call the net effect. And this is a really important point. The theory argues that this isn't a simple one-to-one thing. It's not about looking at, say, Mars and trying to make a prediction. No, it's about the complex interplay of all the planetary forces acting together, all at the same time. The concept actually borrows a pretty cool idea from physics. You might remember this one, Newton's second law. So just like the final movement of an object is the result of all the different forces pushing and pulling on it, this theory suggests that the final movement of the market is the net effect of all these competing planetary influences combined. So think of it like this. Sometimes you might have two planetary influences pushing in the same direction. They reinforce each other and amplify a trend. Other times they might be pushing in opposite directions. What happens then? Well, they could cancel each other out, and you get a flat market. But ultimately, the theory says the strongest, most dominant forces are going to win out and determine where things go. Now, if the strongest forces always win, that leads to a pretty obvious question, right? Are all these planetary influences equal? Well, according to this theory, the answer is a big no. The theory basically breaks the planets into two main groups. First, you've got the big, slow-moving outer planets, like Jupiter and Saturn. Think of them as the giant, slow-moving hour hand on that cosmic clock. They're thought to correspond to those big, strong, long-lasting market trends. Then you have the fast movers, the inner planets like Mercury and our moon. They're like the quick-ticking second hand, linked to all the short-term, day-to-day fluctuations. Okay, so that's the theory. But how is it actually applied? How do you use this? This is where the whole idea of cycles comes in. It's all about searching for repeatable patterns in historical market data. The whole practice really relies on analyzing these cycles, and the easiest one for all of us to wrap our heads around is the lunar cycle. Analysts will look for statistical patterns, asking questions like, do markets tend to hit a bottom around a new moon and maybe peak near a full moon? It's a really simple way to get into a much more complex idea. But it goes way beyond just the moon. There are two main types of cycles that analysts look at. The first one is called planet to market. It's pretty straightforward. You look at where a planet, let's say Saturn, is in its own orbit, and then you see what the market was doing at that exact same point in the past. The second type is planet to planet, which looks at the angular relationship between two planets, like what happens when Jupiter and Saturn are 90 degrees apart, and then they correlate that with what the market does. So why this huge focus on cycles? Well, it comes down to three key things. First, these celestial movements have been happening for, forever, which gives you a massive historical data set to work with. Second, it lets you do a kind of apples-to-apples comparison, looking at how the market behaved every single time a specific planetary alignment happened again. And third, the whole point of this is to try and find statistical correlations that might make market turns a little more predictable. And that brings us to what is maybe the most important point of all, managing expectations. What is the actual goal here? What is this practice really trying to achieve? Look, according to its proponents, this is not a crystal ball. The stated goal is absolutely not about predicting markets with 100% certainty. It's about, and I'm quoting here, to put the odds in the trader's favor. It's all about probability, trying to identify periods where the chances for a certain market move might be just a little bit higher. So, to wrap it all up, the application is all about timing. It's about trying to pinpoint those high probability windows and aligning your trades with what that cosmic clock seems to be suggesting is a more favorable moment.
At the end of the day, it's presented as a game of statistics and odds, not certainties or guarantees.
And this really leaves us with the fundamental question, doesn't it? Is there some kind of hidden order here, a form of cosmic clockwork that lines up with our economic behavior? Or are these just patterns our brains are seeing in what is ultimately random market noise? Is it all just a coincidence? And that's the thought we'll leave you with.